Hello, I'm Elise Vance, the author of the channel Borrowed Lives, and I offer you fascinating stories. Like and subscribe to my channel.
When I bought a crumbling hovercraft repair bay because it was dirt cheap, quiet, and, according to my neighbor, cursed by rogue AI, I thought, perfect. At least glitches don't ask for refunds. But on the first night, no rogue AI came. A cybernetic orbital marine walked in, asked for emergency repairs, recharged his exo-suit using standard motor oil and scrap lithium, then dropped to his knees and shouted that I was an alien archangel. I looked at the empty battery charger dock and thought only one thing: if this is cosmic tech, then my workshop just became a fortune. The heavy thud came at 11:11 p.m. I was standing behind the metal counter of Sector 0 repairs, eating cold protein paste straight from the foil tube because dignity had already left the building alongside my life savings. The hangar smelled like burnt copper, stale ozone, and the faint emotional breakdown of a 26-year-old mechanic who had signed a lease after inspecting only 2 bays and one suspiciously forged safety certificate. The overhead fluorescent strips flickered. Something scraped heavily against the blast doors. I froze with the paste tube halfway to my mouth. "If you're a rogue AI," I called out, "please know my shop liability insurance doesn't cover sentient malware." Another knock, harder this time, rattling the steel frame. My neighbor had sworn the place was hexed. He claimed every previous mechanic heard strange radio frequencies after midnight, saw distorted shadows near the back generator, and abandoned the lease within 4 weeks. That should have terrified me. Instead, the garage had been listed at 30% below market value. Fear is a powerful force, but so is impending bankruptcy. I grabbed a heavy pneumatic wrench, crept to the service hatch, and cracked it open 3 inches. A man stood outside under the torrential smog rain. Not a ghost. Worse. A striking sci-fi holofilm extra with blue blood leaking down his shoulder, scorched battle armor, an energy rifle slung over his back, and the kind of haunted, exhausted eyes that made smart people make terrible life choices. He stared at me. I stared at him. Behind his back, there was no neon-lit city alley. There should have been a cracked asphalt road, an abandoned synth laundry, and Jax's auto parts store with the flickering sign. Instead, there was a jagged crystalline canyon, purple twilight, swirling nebula dust, and a sky filled with twin moons that looked far too bright to be real. The soldier swayed on his feet. "Energy," he croaked, his voice gravelly. "Please." I swung the hatch wider because, apparently, my self-preservation instincts had resigned earlier that morning. "You're either bleeding to death or severely dedicated to deep space roleplay." He blinked as if standard Terran words were a foreign language. Then his knees buckled. "No, absolutely not." "No collapsing," I snapped, catching his shoulder. "I just degreased this floor. Badly, but still." I grabbed his armor plate and hauled him across the threshold. The instant his boots cleared the doorway, the view outside warped violently. For one dizzying second, the alien canyon and my gritty industrial street overlapped like 2 holographic projections glitching over the same space. Then the blast door slammed shut, and Sector 0's generator hummed. The soldier stared at the neon ceiling lights, then at the hydraulic lift, then at the rapid charge battery station. His hand flew to his rifle holster. I raised the pneumatic wrench. "Don't fight my tools. They're old and temperamental, but they're mine." His gaze locked onto the workbench. His biomechanical chest reactor growled so loudly even the air compressor sounded embarrassed. On the tray, I had spare lithium cells, high-grade copper wiring, a tub of thermal conductive paste, and one unopened can of caffeinated synthetic tonic. Grand opening feast. 5-star tragedy. I shoved the tray across the workbench toward him. "Eat, or recharge, before you die dramatically. I can't afford planetary biohazard removal." He picked up a lithium cell like it was an ancient relic of a lost civilization. Then he inserted it into his armor suit's converter intake. His entire posture shifted. Not a little. A lot. It was like his very soul had been personally embraced by pure voltage. He grabbed a copper spool, dipped it into the thermal conductive gel by accident, ingested the compound, and went completely motionless. "What is this holy glowing ointment?" Thermal paste, I replied. It cools processors and stops friction heat. It's synthetic silicone and zinc oxide having terrible boundaries. Then he drained a raw energy module. His eyes closed. I watched a grizzled space warrior look as if he were about to ascend into the heavens. He consumed the raw materials like a starving beast trying to maintain military decorum inside a temple. When I popped the tab on the synthetic tonic, the hiss of carbonation made him jump back so fast his armor slammed into the tool rack. It snarls. It's soda, I said. Is it alive? Only chemically. Drink it. He took one cautious sip. His eyes widened to the size of navigation dials. Thunder. He gasped. Sugar, carbon dioxide, and questionable life decisions. He took a larger gulp, bolder now. Joyous thunder water. That sounds absurd. I'm writing that down. When the tray was bare, he slid off the metal stool and dropped straight to his knees. I scrambled back behind the counter. Oh no. Absolutely not. Get up. Tech priestess, his voice rumbled with absolute reverence. You have restored my life force. I am not a tech priestess. I am a certified mechanic with severe debt and a surplus of battery packs. He lowered his head even further. I am Commander Orion Vance, Vanguard of the Valerius Star Fleet. I shall honor this sanctuary until my cybernetics rust to dust. Orion, stand up before I start charging a divine intervention fee. He looked bewildered enough to be entirely genuine. That was the moment 3 undeniable truths hit me. First, this guy wasn't a cosplayer. Second, my hangar bay door had somehow warped into a portal to a distant planetary empire. Third, if high-tech alien soldiers thought standard garage supplies were holy relics, my terrible real estate investment had just become an absurdly lucrative enterprise. Orion had no local currency, or at least nothing a standard bank would accept without a temporal permit. He looked genuinely remorseful as he reached into his tactical chest rig and pulled out a small obsidian orb. A worthless trinket from my homeworld, he said quietly. It merely stores thermal encryption keys. Please take it. I almost turned it down. Then he looked so despondent that my cold heart thawed just a fraction. Fine. Payment accepted. But next time, bring standard platinum ingots, solar glass, or anything that doesn't look like it belongs in a classified military vault. He bowed once more. My gratitude, master of the forge. I pointed my wrench at him. No bowing near the power grid. The circuit breaker already has an attitude problem. At 3:33 a.m., the blast door shuttered. Orion stepped back outside, and the swirling purple canyon swallowed him whole. Morning arrived. The heavy shutter rolled up to reveal my mundane street. Old Man Henderson was out front sweeping rain debris off the curb. A hoverbus ground its gears as it hummed past. Someone screamed at an automated delivery drone. No alien moons. No cybernetic commander. No proof whatsoever, except for the glowing obsidian orb sitting on my workbench and greasy handprints on my grease rag dispenser. I shoved the orb into an anti-static bag and took it to Sterling Vance, no relation to Orion, who ran a high-end black market tech syndicate downtown. Sterling had appraised my late uncle's fake quantum scanner years ago with the warm sympathy of a surgeon delivering fatal news. He slotted the orb into a diagnostic rig. Then he stopped breathing entirely. Where in the outer rims did you get this? He whispered. Storage, I said cleanly. In your garage? Curse storage. What is it, Sterling? His voice dropped to an anxious hush. This is an original Valerian datacore. Pre-collapse era. Scholars thought this tech was completely wiped out during the Nebula Wars. If the quantum signatures check out, this is worth at least 2 million credits. I dropped onto a nearby metal crate. Sterling crouched next to me. Are you hyperventilating? No, I squeaked. I am adopting a new financial philosophy. This belongs in a planetary archive. It was holding encrypted firmware, I muttered. Please never say that out loud again. By that evening, Sterling had verified enough signatures to issue me a massive cash advance via a private collector while setting up an off-market auction. I walked straight into an industrial wholesale warehouse with the ice-cold aura of a woman whose hex repair shop had just paid off every loan she had ever taken. I bought high-density battery arrays, liquid copper spools, industrial cooling gels, synth oil packs, surge protectors, micro-welding kits, protein bars, energy drinks, foldable workbench stations, and a state-of-the-art quad-camera security grid. The warehouse manager asked if I was starting a private defense firm. I just smiled. Something like that. If this was a cosmic glitch, I was buying the premium subscription. On the second night, I unlocked Sector 0 at 10:50 p.m., primed the fast chargers, stacked the supply crates, and waited. At 11:11 p.m., the heavy thud rattled the door. This time, Orion stood outside with 3 armored shock troopers behind him, all covered in alien mud, all exhausted, all staring at the neon sign like I had built a lighthouse in the middle of deep space. Orion looked slightly embarrassed. Engineer Mira. I disclosed the sanctuary only to my most loyal squad mates. One trooper leaned around Orion's shoulder, and I mentioned it to my platoon leader. Another raised a gauntlet hand. I told no one except the mess hall crew. The third sniffed the air and gasped, "Is that pure liquid coolant?" I stared down Orion. He lowered his helmet visor in shame. I may have described the thermal paste. "Orion," I said with forced calm. "You told them caffeine water was captured lightning. It electrified my biocircuits." I spoke only truth. I swung the door wide. "Fine. New operational protocols. Line up. Pay before departing. No kneeling near live high-voltage wires. Do not pray to the hydraulic lift. Do not steal heat shrink tubing. If anyone calls me a divine entity, the service fee doubles." The troopers nodded like I had just read them imperial court martial law. The first one inserted a battery pack and wept openly. The second slathered copper paste onto his suit joints and declared it cloud silk ointment. The third stood at attention and saluted the main generator. Orion took up a guard stance right next to the energy rack. I jabbed a screwdriver toward him. "What are you doing?" "Guarding the central power core. It's a commercial circuit box. It powers the lights. It also powers my remaining sanity, and both run on limited capacity." By midnight, the 4 warriors had consumed enough industrial supply to trigger a corporate audit. They paid in raw cobalt ingots, a cracked plasma knife, a scorched targeting visor, and a heavy brass insignia Orion referred to as a fleet commander's seal. I had zero clue what any of it was worth. Neither did they. Beautiful. Near closing time, an old scavenger shuffled in wearing patched hazard gear, a cracked respirator around his neck, and the cunning expression of a man who had never missed a rumor in his entire long life. "I merely caught a peculiar ion scent coming off the mountain path," he rasped. Orion exhaled heavily. "Scavenger Silas." The old man clutched his chest dramatically. "Do not cast accusations." My aged joints simply drifted toward Destiny. "You followed our thruster trails for battery cells. Destiny smelled like high-grade lithium." I handed him a small tray with a spare cell and a drop of cooling paste. He loaded it into his worn exo-rig, froze as the power hit his suit, and looked at me with misted eyes. "Tech lady, the ache in my spine has vanished. That will be 3 copper-nickel tokens. I am a destitute scavenger. Your back pain can easily return." He gasped. "Merciless mechanic." "Very well, I accept bartering with raw mineral scrap." Silas brightened up immediately, dumping rare luminescent fungi, 2 stellar radishes, a chipped ceramic insulator, and a bundle of conductor herbs onto my counter. "This insulator is hideous and cracked. Surely garbage. Take it before my spouse uses it to scrape grease." I looked at the faint violet sigil stamped beneath the crack. "Payment accepted." "Does old age earn an extra power cell?" "No." "Half a power cell?" "Silas. I am not begging. I am negotiating with Wrinkles." I tossed him 3 miniature battery caps. He winked at Orion. Wrinkles win again. The next day, Sterling saw the chipped ceramic insulator and made a strangled noise, as if his soul were escaping through his nostrils. "This insulator is worth 800,000 credits. It was holding star radishes." "Mira, functional citizens do not transport Empire-grade orbital insulators in dirty vegetable rags." "It wasn't a vegetable rag," I replied smoothly. "It was a thermal cloth. If you bring me one more priceless piece of history wrapped in farm produce, I am going to pass out right here on your showroom floor." I leaned over his desk. "So, I should use a padded crate next time." Sterling dragged both hands down his face. By the end of the second week, Sector 0 had full-blown regular customers. Orbital shock troopers from the Void Ridge outpost, asteroid miners from nearby stations, scrap hunters carrying rare pelts and ancient coins, and traveling star merchants who tried to bargain aggressively. Until Orion quietly rested one heavy gauntlet on his plasma rifle, causing them to suddenly recall fair market ethics. I drafted an official service menu: golden ion battery, immortal power rods, red friction gel, white cloud coolant, joyous thunder tonic, nebula cake, archangel burger, fusion cheese sticks, cosmic boba tea. Orion translated the menu into stunning ancient imperial calligraphy, though he unfortunately added, "Blessings granted by Master Mira of the Sacred Spark." I took a black marker and violently crossed that line out. Too religious. Yet entirely accurate. This is an auto repair shop, not a temple. A passing Marine walked by us and bowed directly to the battery charger station. I pointed an accusing finger at Orion. "See? You are actively encouraging appliance worship." Orion maintained an unblinking gaze. "Perhaps the power dock requires a minor title, then. It has a brand name. It recharges equipment." "Fine, just keep the dust off it." Scavenger Silas had effectively turned himself into my chief marketing officer by accident, which meant he was a walking public hazard. He swore up and down that he hadn't told a soul my secret. I only mentioned it to my nephew, my neighbor, the fuel merchant, and one cargo mule. The cargo mule is completely discreet. Silas, the local outpost, is basically one room if you talk loud enough. By the third week, half the asteroid colony knew about the tech lady's workshop. By the fourth, someone had left woven space lilies outside the blast door, asking the hydraulic lift to bless their upcoming voyage. I promptly relocated the hydraulic lift behind a padlocked partition. Then came Lyra. Silas brought her during a heavy acid rainstorm, wrapped in a threadbare thermal cloak, her face deathly pale, her eyes far too large for her frail, exhausted body. She was 17 or 18, though severe malnutrition made her look like a child. "This is Lyra," Silas muttered softly, his usual playful demeanor entirely gone. "Her grandmother is sick." Her family fell into heavy debt with the local mining syndicate. They planned to sell her contract to a rogue freighter captain. The entire garage fell dead quiet. Lyra bowed so low her head nearly touched the concrete, a gesture I utterly loathed. "I can sweep the bays, tech lady. I don't require credit pay. Simple food cells are enough." My chest constricted with cold anger. I offered a sharp smile that had zero warmth in it. "Who holds the debt contract?" Silas gave me the name. An hour later, Orion, Silas, and I stood inside the sleek office of a syndicate loan shark whose face radiated smug arrogance. The man sneered when he saw my oil-stained jumpsuit. "A grease monkey wants to buy out a syndicate contract?" "I want to buy your silence too," I replied smoothly, "but I doubt you can afford the price." His sneer evaporated. I settled the contract in solid silver ingots earned from the soldiers, alongside one ancient coin sterling had converted into local currency. I forced him to sign a legal release form right in front of 3 station guards. Orion's plasma rifle did a vast amount of quiet legal persuasion. When the loan shark reached out to grab Lyra's arm one last time, I stepped directly into his face. "If anyone in your crew attempts to claim her again, I will introduce them to high-voltage customer service violence." Lyra stared at me wide-eyed. Back at the hangar, she whispered nervously, "I will work without pay, truly." "No," I said, slapping a spare set of work gloves into her hands. "I am not an imperial oppressor. In my shop, people work, get paid, and keep their dignity." Silas wiped a tear from his eye. "The tech lady is terrifying. I also charge for power cells. Less holy, but still terrifying." Lyra became my head assistant. She learned the trade fast. Too fast sometimes. One night, she picked up a high-caffeine energy drink canister and squinted at the warning label. "Sister Mira, this reads maximum velocity. Should I give this to the exhausted shock trooper?" "No. Absolutely not." Too late. A soldier sprinted past the hangar window, eyes wide as saucers, screaming that plasma ran through his veins. Lyra clasped her hands nervously. Will his heart explode? No, but he might organize the entire supply depot by hand. She learned not to call the microwelder a fire wand, not to open thermal paste packs with a hunting blade, and not to tell customers that fusion cheese sticks contained actual star core plasma unless we wanted another full-blown worship situation. We wanted revenue, not a cult. Though honestly, the distinction was getting blurrier by the day. In the modern world, money started pouring in so fast I had to sit down every time Sterling called me. This Obsidian data core sold for 3 million credits. It arrived inside a bag of radishes, Mira. I need a medical station. This jade sensor pin is worth 800,000. Lyra used it to poke open a crate. I am going to pretend you never said that. This scanner belongs in a planetary museum. It was being used to prop up a crooked table. Sterling, my heart is filing an official grievance. I sold the artifacts carefully through Sterling's syndicate, legal appraisals, private collectors, and planetary archives when necessary. No suspicious dumping, no flashy spending. I might have owned a spatial rift, but I wasn't about to spend 20 years in a penal colony because Silas brought me ancient ceramics wrapped in dirt. I paid off my original debt. Then I bought Sector Zero outright. Then I bought the abandoned warehouse next door. My neighbor stared at the construction crew installing reinforced ventilation, industrial freezers, hydraulic benches, an upgraded interface counter, and a sleek modern office upstairs. I thought that place was cursed, he muttered. The rogue AIs were underperforming, so I rebranded. He nodded as if that made complete sense. Maybe in real estate it did. The garage became legendary across the Valerius Empire. Customers claimed the energy cells revived dying warriors. They didn't. They just recharged troops who had been chewing on dry emergency rations for months, which was close enough. They claimed the tonic contained bottled starlight. Emotionally, yes. They claimed the crispy synth bites cured existential dread. Silas insisted this was absolute truth. Your food healed my dark soul and utterly ruined my budget. Your budget was never a functioning concept. He held out a tarnished metal chalice. Payment. Silas, this has an imperial seal on it. Hideous, yes. Very suspicious. Extremely useless. Take it before my spouse plants space herbs in it. Sterling later appraised it at 2.4 million credits and asked if my back room had established diplomatic relations with a lost kingdom. Then Commander General Vane entered our lives. He didn't come personally at first. A young officer arrived near midnight, his armor drenched in acid rain, his eyes desperate. My commander has not taken sustenance or power in 12 days. He is General Vane of the Ninth Fleet. If the tech lady's miracles can save him. I don't cure war heroes, I interrupted sharply. I run a repair bay. If he needs medical attention, find a doctor. He has doctors. He refuses all treatment. That was different. War left wounds that plasma cutters couldn't fix, but sometimes a warm meal and a quiet room could sit beside the pain. I packed a gentle thermal broth, soft yeast bread, warm synthetic soup, smooth mashed star tubers, and a few mild protein bites. No high-caffeine drinks. I valued my shop's structural integrity. The officer paid with a silver fleet badge and genuine tears. 2 nights later, General Vane arrived in person. He was massive, gray-haired, heavily scarred, and hollow-eyed, a legendary war commander whose very name made junior officers stand at attention. He sat down at my corner workbench as if his exo-armor weighed more than the entire hangar. I set a warm bowl of broth down in front of him. No speeches. Just try 1 spoon. He did. His mechanical hand trembled slightly. Then he took another. His young nephew wept silently in the shadow of the doorway. Vane finished half the bowl. Not a miracle. Not magic. Just a soldier remembering his body was still alive. I set down a loaf of warm bread. Slowly, his dark eyes met mine. They said you were an alien goddess. I am a mechanic with high rent, trauma, and a workbench. The corner of his mouth twitched upward. Later, he tried the tonic because Silas told him it would forge iron in his veins. The general took 1 deep gulp and coughed so hard it sounded like an enemy ambush. General, I said, taking the can away. You survived the Nebula Wars. Don't lose a battle to carbonation. He laughed. It was rusty, rough, but deeply real. From that night onward, General Vane protected Sector Zero. Not by worshipping me, but by assigning disciplined fleet guards, turning away corrupt officials, and making it crystal clear that anyone causing trouble at my garage would answer to a man who had once crushed an entire rebel fleet with 3 cruisers and a terrible mood. That military protection proved essential when High Merchant Malachar arrived. Malachar was a sleek, arrogant corporate executive with a gilded cane, pristine silk robes, and the kind of oily smile men used right before foreclosing on an orphanage. He swept into the hangar with a retinue of armed guards, surveyed my menu wall, and sneered. "You will sell me your proprietary technology and processing formulas immediately." I blinked. "Hello to you too. I am prepared to pay handsomely." Rich executives who say, "Name your price," never actually like my price. His smile turned ice cold. "Every asset has a price. So does my remaining patience." "You are vastly overreaching," Malachar warned, looking around at asteroid miners eating battery paste, shock troopers dipping chicken bites into coolant sauce, Silas shoving a baked puff into his tunic, and Lyra tallying credit chips. This squalid little bay could become a respectable enterprise under proper corporate management. My secret formula is proper maintenance and not treating my clientele like disposable parts. You might struggle with both. Orion stepped up beside me, silently resting his hand on his plasma rifle. Malachar noted the high-grade armor and immediately shifted tactics. "I shall take samples for lab analysis. You'll purchase a meal combo like everyone else." He paid for a basic combo, but tried to sneak extra sauce canisters into his coat. Lyra saw him. Silas saw him. A kid outside saw him. The cargo mule probably knew. I smiled sweetly and handed him a customized special tasting kit before he departed. Orion glanced down at me. "That was not our standard thermal gel." "No." "What was it?" "Concentrated regret with industrial chili extract." A week later, High Merchant Malachar hosted a grand banquet in the capital city, serving what he rebranded as Celestial Malachar Protocol Chicken. He had used my fake sample kit, doubled the heat, and added heavy syrup because greedy men believe sweetness covers up theft. It did not. His high society guests sweat through their formal silk outfits. One countess wept hysterically into a napkin. Another noble demanded emergency medical aid, clean water, spiritual intervention, and a legal team. A planetary governor formally accused the dish of biowarfare. Orion delivered the scout report to me with deadpan military gravity. He was utterly dismantled. By the sauce. By arrogance garnished with hubris. Silas raised both hands in prayer. "May we sample the chemical weapon?" "No." "For scientific research?" "No." Next came Executive Celine Frost, owner of Frost's Spire Bistro, the most prestigious dining establishment in the high-orbit district. Pompous, ridiculously expensive, fake refinement. Her tiny dishes arrived under polished silver domes with absurd names like Mist over Crimson Nebula, offering portions small enough to qualify as urban rumors. She heard miners, troops, and high-ranking officers talking about my gritty repair bay and completely lost her mind. First came the media rumors: cursed alien tech, illegal bio-oil, a rogue mechanic corrupting citizens with black market red sauce. Then came hired fake customers who clutched their stomachs dramatically before even touching their food, declaring themselves poisoned. I watched one actor groan on the hangar floor near the counter. "You haven't even received your order yet," I noted. He paused his performance. "The atmospheric fumes poison me. Then pay a tax for breathing my air." He scrambled up and sprinted out the door. Lyra whispered, "Should I have the guards chase him?" "No. His acting career is punishment enough." Then Celine attempted to copy our crispy chicken bites. Her corporate version was burnt to ash on the outside, raw inside, and seasoned with pure desperation. A freighter pilot brought a sample wrapped in shop towels as proof. Silas sniffed it cautiously. "It smells as though the poultry died in absolute fury." One shock trooper ate a crumb and saluted the room. I survived the test. I sighed deeply. If you're going to commit industrial espionage, at least do it with talent. This is just embarrassing for organized crime. Celine escalated. She bribed regional inspectors to raid us and charged me with illegal, unlicensed alien tech ops. The head inspector strode in, full of authority, until he spotted General Vane sitting in the corner, calmly drinking chicken broth. The inspector bowed so fast his officer cap nearly launched across the room. Vane looked up coldly. Is there a regulatory issue here? The inspector stared at the menu wall. Only a surplus of bizarre item titles, General. Which is entirely legal. Good. Order a combo. He ordered the loaded fries and returned the next night in casual civilian clothes as a regular. Business boomed regardless. We expanded the menu: hot fusion cocoa, nebula cream puffs, fusion cheese rods, flame-grilled sausages, galactic boba tea. I kept reminding everyone that this was standard commercial scrap, not wholly alien artifacts. Nobody cared. Orion inscribed brilliant new signboards. Lyra mastered modern accounting software. Silas appointed himself senior emotional customer advisor, which meant he sat by the entrance and guilt-tripped wealthy patrons into upgrading their orders. Only a single battery pack, my lord? In these dark economic times, even the nobility must stand brave. The noble promptly ordered 3 heavy arrays. I glared at Silas. He merely shrugged. Marketing? You said it yourself. You're using emotional manipulation via elderly Wrinkles. Wrinkles won before. They win again. At closing, we ate together. Galaxy-style barbecue one night, burgers another, hot cocoa after an acid rainstorm. Cake tasting whenever I pretended it was necessary for inventory control. Orion learned I was not an archangel, but a mechanic from a completely different world. Lyra cried, hugged me, and then asked if all women from my dimension owned automated cooking tech. Not all of them. Then how do they survive? Badly, I admitted. Silas claimed he had known the truth all along. You tried to leave a financial offering to the lithium charger. I reminded him. As a joke. Orion looked at him. You wept when the battery charger hummed. Respectfully wept. Silas huffed. Orion became far more than my first customer. He kept belligerent drunks out, walked Lyra home safely, moved heavy machinery without making it a display of hypermasculinity, asked before entering the workshop backroom, and learned that I hated being treated as fragile while loving being treated as capable. One night, a drunken space trader started screaming because we ran out of fusion cheese sticks. Orion stepped between us. I will protect you. Wonderful, I said, handing him a broom. Start with the trash. Yes, Engineer Mira. He took out the trash. Literally. Then he escorted the trader out. My heart did something completely unprofessional. I ignored it by aggressively reorganizing ketchup packets. Romantic feelings are much easier to dodge when condiments require sorting. High Merchant Malachar and Executive Celine Frost finally joined forces. Villains love corporate mergers because individual failure gets lonely. They arranged a public tribunal at the High Orbital Tribunal, a traveling court held for trade and military disputes. They accused me of using weaponized biotech to brainwash military officers, poisoning elites through fraudulent recipes, and bribing locals with black market sauces. They brought fake witnesses. They brought Celine's sickened bistro patrons. They brought Malachar's bruised pride draped in silk robes. I brought a reinforced crate labeled evidence, snacks, and emotional damage. Orion carried it. Lyra brought audited ledgers. Silas wore his finest patched hazard tunic and announced to the court, I am old, impoverished, and tragically handsome. I know a scam when I see one. I whispered, Silas, the judge didn't ask if you were handsome. I am establishing witness credibility. General Vane took his seat in the gallery, causing half the tribunal panel to sit up straight and the other half to regret their career choices. Celine spoke first, elegant, and laced with venom. This woman hides behind charitable pretense while corrupting our citizens. Her concoctions poisoned high-ranking guests at Lord Malachar's gala. She mocks our culinary heritage. I don't mock anything, I interjected cleanly. Silas just makes up names because he wants free pastries. Silas looked deeply offended. Discounted pastries. Malachar stepped forward. Her methods are unregistered. Honest engineers do not conceal their blueprints. My blueprints aren't public property just because you carry a gold-plated cane. Murmurs erupted through the court. A fake witness claimed he collapsed after consuming my food. Lyra stepped up, small but unflinching. He never bought food. He entered during a thunderstorm, fainted theatrically before ordering, and ran away when Sister Mira tried to charge him for breathing hangar air. The gallery burst into laughter. Another witness claimed my recipe was stolen from Frostspire Bistro. Orion opened our evidence crate and displayed transaction logs, signed delivery receipts, and 2 sealed containers from Malakur's Gala. This container was recovered from Merchant Malakur's kitchen, Orion announced. The security seal matches the fraudulent sample kit he confiscated from Engineer Mira after attempting to steal inventory. Malakur flushed dark red. Absurd. I offered a sweet smile. Merchant Malakur, would you care to ingest your own sauce in front of the Honorable Tribunal? He turned pale. No. Silas sighed. A tragedy. I pulled out a cold carton of milk, just in case. Then came Celine's copied dish. Orion placed a plate from Frostspire Bistro onto the evidence table. Burnt chicken, raw interior, 0 seasoning except pure misery. A tribunal judge sniffed it and visibly recoiled. Celine snapped, that is not my establishment's work. Lyra opened her ledger. Your head chef dispatched a courier to purchase spoiled meat, rancid oil, and scrap flour. Your assistant paid 2 vagrants to claim food poisoning from Sector 0 after eating this exact dish. The assistant, dragged forward by General Vane's elite guards, broke down immediately. Some people withstand legal pressure, others see General Vane and turn into poets of full confession. Bank transfers, bribe records, forged documents, and Malakur's contract promising Celine exclusive market rights were displayed across the main holoscreen. The tribunal flipped completely. Celine's wealthy patrons whispered behind pristine silk fans. Malakur's corporate partners stepped away from him as if fraud were contagious. General Vane stood up. I ate at Sector 0 when my body rejected all standard rations. Mira never claimed to be divine. She served me broth and told me not to lose a battle to carbonated bubbles. That is not dark tech. That is basic human decency delivered with terrible manners. General. I muttered. He sat back down, thoroughly satisfied. The tribunal ordered Celine to pay massive financial restitution, revoked Frostspire Bistro's commercial operating license, and sentenced her to community service in a public relief kitchen funded by me, serving shock troopers and impoverished families until her debt was clear. I leaned toward her before she left the court. Don't be sad. You finally get to learn how real food works. Malakur lost his corporate contracts, board seats, and enough wealth in legal penalties to make his gilded cane look financially nervous. He was permanently banned from Sector 0. He attempted one final performance. I apologize if Engineer Mira misunderstood my corporate intentions. No, I cut in. I didn't earn millions just to accept a half-assed apology. Try again, with a spine this time. The court erupted in chuckles. Malakur swallowed hard, bowing low. I apologize for theft, slander, bribery, and corporate espionage. Better. Still ugly, but better. After the trial, the spatial portal stabilized. No theatrical explosions, no glowing ancient prophecies. The garage simply felt permanent. The blast door opened every night at 11:11 p.m. and sealed tight at 3:33 a.m. No flickering, no stray spatial winds, no random travelers appearing in my private living quarters upstairs, which I appreciated because my apartment had enough boundary issues. We learned the portal rules through trial, error, and one hilarious incident where Silas attempted to sneak upstairs to test my modern memory foam mattress. The rift gently rotated him around 180 degrees and placed him back in front of the main counter. He looked deeply betrayed. The facility rejects my elderly joints. The facility respects personal privacy. Modern humans couldn't wander into the Valerius Empire unless I personally opened the door during portal hours. Alien customers could enter the repair bay, but private office zones remained blurred and impassable unless invited. Goods passed both ways seamlessly. Fair trade worked, but theft triggered immediate defense protocols. One prospective thief snatched a box of Nebula cakes and tried to sprint out the door. He ran full speed into an invisible, solid kinetic wall. 3 separate times. We watched him bounce off. I calmly sipped my milk tea. The portal has strict anti-theft policies. Orion nodded approvingly. Excellent security programming. Silas whispered, "Does it block uninvited in-laws?" I certainly hope so. Thieves, scam artists, and individuals with hostile intent began seeing only a solid, rusted metal wall where my garage door should have been. Hungry wanderers, honest miners, and desperate families still found the open doorway whenever they needed sanctuary. The mystery remained mysterious enough to be enchanting and practical enough to run a booming interdimensional business. My life became completely impossible and absolutely perfect. By day, Sector Zero served normal Terran customers who assumed my futuristic retro sci-fi theme was top-tier marketing. I smiled, taking their cash for loaded fries, fried chicken boxes, custom teas, and burgers. My neighbors called me an industrious young entrepreneur. Sterling called me a walking economic crisis. By night, the Valerius Empire queued up outside my blast door. Silas's family no longer faced starvation, though he still brought useless junk to trade, including a cracked stasis urn worth 12 million credits that almost made Sterling propose to me on the spot. Lyra was paid well, well-clothed, and learning to read both Terran English and Valerian script. She did once accidentally give a scrap hunter a double espresso because he said he needed courage. He challenged an industrial crane to a fistfight. The crane won. General Vane recovered steadily. He never became the booming, cheerful war hero people expected, but he became quieter, kinder, and absolute poison to any corrupt official wandering near my shop. Celine worked off her sentence in the relief kitchen under heavy guard, serving full portions to people she once looked down on. Malachar lost so many assets that his name became a running joke among merchant guilds. No magical forgiveness, no sudden redemption, just cold consequences with garnish. Sterling kept liquidating my artifacts legally, threatening to retire every time I walked into his office carrying a greasy paper bag. "This looks like an imperial coronation seal, Mira. It has oil stains on it." It was holding onions. "Mira, I need you to realize that onions are not an origin story. Orion and I became something no standard menu could categorize." He returned to military duty whenever duty called, patrolling sector borders, escorting relief convoys, protecting trade routes. But every time the portal hummed open and his combat boots crossed my concrete floor, my heart did that same ridiculous, unprofessional flutter. One night, after a brutal patrol, he arrived with a small laser burn on his cheek armor and a subtle smile he tried to hide. "Engineer Mira, I have returned." I grabbed the medkit, pointing to a stool. "Sit down before you bleed on my newly tiled floor." He obeyed instantly. As I cleaned the wound, he watched my face rather than the bandage. "I would gladly give my life for you." "I'd rather you give me the broom," I replied softly. "Your life is terrible at sweeping up metal shavings." His mouth softened into a genuine smile. "Then I shall live and sweep poorly." That is the most romantic threat I've heard all week. He reached out, gently taking my hand, leaving ample time for me to pull away. I didn't. "I know you are not an archangel," he murmured. "Good. The wings would completely ruin my work apron." "You are Mira," he said, his voice dropping. "Owner of Sector Zero, keeper of the gateway, terrifying to corrupt elites, compassionate to the hungry, and utterly hopeless at accepting help." "Careful," I warned softly. "Compliments exceeding 3 points are subject to taxation." "I love you." The battery charger beeped loudly right on cue. Because of course it did. Silas yelled from the back workbench, "Is the ion chicken ready, or are you two manufacturing emotional drama again?" I closed my eyes in exasperation. "I am going to assign him to full-time kitchen duty." Orion laughed quietly. I looked down at our interlocked hands, feeling the steady warmth of his grip. "I love you too. Unfortunately, this is going to be terrible for my work schedule." "I can assist. You already guard the power dock." With supreme honor, he declared. "It's a commercial fast charger. It brought me to you." "That was unfairly smooth," I muttered, leaning in to kiss him before he could say anything else to make me soft on a busy shift. On the final night of my first year, I closed up the Terran side after a day so busy my feet were threatening to go on strike. The shop looked nothing like the crumbling, hexed ruin I had bought on a whim. Clean stainless steel counters, bright warm lights, fully stocked freezers, a renovated dining area, a hilarious menu wall, and a framed note from Sterling reading, "Please stop wrapping galactic history in fast food napkins." I flipped off the street sign and leaned against the main counter. Finally, peace and quiet. Thud. Thud. Of course. I unlocked the blast door. Orion stood outside, battered from patrol but smiling warmly. Behind him, Silas carried a sack of tarnished metal cups that looked suspiciously priceless. Lyra rushed out from the back wearing a clean apron, her hair tied up, eyes full of life. Silas lifted his sack triumphantly. "Tech lady, I brought ugly cups. Utterly useless. Also, my aged joints demand sustenance. You ate 2 hours ago and survived. Proof that your craft works." Orion stepped over the threshold, his eyes locking onto mine. "Engineer Mira, I have returned. I hope you brought an appetite," I smiled. "Tonight, we're making high-velocity burgers." He looked slightly wary. "What is a burger?" "Another existential crisis, most likely." Silas raised a hand. "Does old age qualify for 2? "Old age qualifies for 1. "Then I am legally 2 old men." Lyra giggled, setting out plates. The battery charger hummed rhythmically. The spatial portal glowed softly behind the heavy door, steady, warm, bridging the gap between my gritty industrial city and a vast galactic empire that thought soda was thunder and basic kindness was cosmic magic. I looked at Orion, at Lyra, at Silas hiding a priceless ceramic cup behind his back, and at the shop that had saved my life by being cursed in the most profitable way imaginable. I bought the cheapest, bugged repair bay in the district to escape mountain-high debt. I didn't expect to fuel an empire, sell black market artifacts worth tens of millions, adopt a space scavenger grandfather with criminal negotiation skills, hire a girl who thought energy drinks were hyperdrive fuel, fall for a cybernetic commander who treated my battery charger like a holy shrine, and discover that destiny doesn't always knock politely. Sometimes it arrives in battle armor, hungry as a void beast, and asks for extra fries.